Let's do it. Alright, here we go. Do I have everything? We have our window. Let's not actually be missing. Oh, I did fuck this way too soon. Here we go. Hey! One shot! Let's go! Hey folks, today I'm going to bring you another update on the strength stacking Runemaster. This will be somewhat of a guide since I think we are now at the point in the build where I'm pretty happy with it. I think it can do a lot of the things I want to do, and it's pretty fun to play. In the beginning I was a little bit concerned that this build wouldn't work, but I think at this point I am going to call it a success. I did do Aberoth, I haven't done Uber Aberoth yet, but considering how easy the Aberoth fight is, I think this is a build that I can recommend playing if you do like playing mages. Now, I will clarify that in Season 1.2, Sentinel is just extremely strong. If you do want to just play the best possible build, then it's probably going to be some sort of Sentinel. But if you want to play a build that's still pretty damn good, and also a mage, then this might be the build for you. Also, if you want to play the memeiest build possible, and you want to T-pose on enemies while you kill them, this is the build for you. Anyway, if you do like this sort of thing, please consider leaving a like on the video, and I'll keep pumping them out. Let's jump into it. Before explaining the build and all the mechanics, let's first jump into an Echo, and I'll show you how it plays. So this is a Autobomber. It's very tanky, it's pretty mobile, it's also extremely easy to play. You don't really have to think much when playing. It's a very good streamer build actually, because I can read chat while I'm playing. It's just that easy. If you're eating your lunch or something like that, you can keep playing this build. So basically how it works is you have your focus, which is defensive, and because of the mana guide Amulet, the new unique with 1.2, you can move while channeling focus. And in case you haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. Actually kind of hilarious. And this is the basis of our build where all of our survivability comes from. But yeah, we have a Runic Invocation, in this case Plasma Orb, which is triggered by our Flame Rush. You can see here it's orbiting around us while we move around. And every time the Plasma Orb hits an enemy, it applies a stack of Brand of Deception, which is an ailment, damage over time. So every enemy on the screen pretty much is getting hit with a damage over time ailment, and they all kind of just die while we move around, being mostly immortal. And yeah, that's kind of the basis of the build. You can see how it plays. You are almost permanently channeling. You're either channeling focus or channeling flame rush. If you're ever not channeling, you're probably playing the build wrong. And while channeling, you are basically immortal, as I said. And that's pretty much it. You will want to get more move speed in this build because it's an Autobomber. I don't actually have that much move speed with my current setup, so this would definitely be a lot better if I had more of that. And this is our clear setup. We also have a single target setup, which does many times more damage than this. If you want, you can one-shot some bosses with the single target setup. And you don't even need to change gear, you use the same gear, you just swap out your skills a little bit. You don't need to re-level anything either, you just change one point. The basis of this is Runic Invocation, Plasma Orb, applying Brand. So if you don't know Runic Invocation, based on the runes you have, it gives you a different spell. Plasma Orb is probably one of the best if you want to hit as many enemies as possible. It just has a really great quality of life. It's auto-cast with Flame Rush. There you can see I use Flame Rush. Here's my Plasma Orb. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now let's quickly touch on the single target. So this, as I said, is the multi-target with single target. All you need to do is you go into Flame Rush. You can even do this while moving if you're WASD. You just spec those points. You unspec this point. So you're turning Flame Rush now into cold and Frostwall into fire. Then you just swap the order here, and instead of Plasma Orb, you now have Covenant Arc. And this is your single target setup. It's that easy. It doesn't hit that many targets, but it will do potentially million plus damage ticks on bosses. Whenever you're done with your single target setup, all you have to do is just remove these points here. You go into Frostwall, you re-add fire, and you can see we don't actually care the enemies are hitting us. They don't really do much because we're so tanky. And then boom, there you go, you're back into your AoE setup. For most Echo running, you never actually need to swap. You just stay into the Plasma Orb all the time. It will do enough damage. You can actually boost your damage if you want with Frostwall. Whenever it's down, it gives you a damage boost against chilled enemies, which is pretty significant. And if you pass through it, it buffs your next Plasma Orb. So you can see here, this Plasma Orb is buffed. It does significantly more damage. So if you need the single target, you do that. You can also use FLAMEWARD, which gives us more lightning damage. So that applies to the ailment. So we get even more damage if you use FLAMEWARD first before doing the damage. So all of these things contribute towards your damage, and you can get quite a lot of it. So before I start talking about all the skills and passives and stuff like that, let's quickly explain how Brand of Deception works. So you can see here in the Runemaster tree with 5 points of Brand of Deception, lightning skills that cost at least 15 mana apply Brand of Deception on hit. So what is Brand of Deception? It's a ailment that stacks only one time and deals 400 lightning damage over 3 seconds. That doesn't sound like a lot of damage, but what really makes this scale is every multiplier, increased damage, everything like that that is on the skill that applies it will be transferred to the ailment. So I did the math already on this, and we have quite a lot of multipliers being transferred. Just the shock alone from this node. So we are already getting 6% more damage per 1% shock. We have something like 500 right now. So this is already 3000% more damage on this before we even start getting into any of the other multipliers. But yeah, so that's 3000% more damage. We also have more multiplier here for our single target. So per point of strength, we have 150. That's 450% more damage, which gets transferred to the ailment. These are all multiplied against each other, so you know the multipliers kind of get pretty crazy. We have int, which is a bunch of increased damage. That also applies because it applies to the skill. And Runic Invocation itself also has a bunch of more multipliers, which also get transferred to the Brand of Deception. So like damage per rune consumed, this gets added to the Brand of Deception. The damage per type of rune, this gets added to the Brand of Deception. Even the elemental pen per 3 int, this also gets transferred to the Brand of Deception and acts as another damage multiplier. So every multiplier we can stack onto Runic Invocation gets transferred onto the Brand of Deception, plus all of our generic increases to damage. So for example, increase LE damage over time. This also gets transferred onto our Brand of Deception. And basically what you end up with is you multiply that 400 base damage by thousands of times, and it ends up getting pretty crazy. So I've already gotten 2 million to 5 million ticks on the dummy. I'm not even min-maxed yet. A lot of my gear is not fully optimized. There's still a significant amount of room for growth, but for now we're already doing pretty solid damage to clear and AoE. So one thing to note is because we are swapping between Plasma Orb and Covenant Arc, you can see here it depends on the middle rune of the Runic Invocation for which damage multiplier we get. So we are strength stacking. That means that all of our damage is basically only applying on the Covenant Arc. So with our cold lightning setup, we're getting all of that damage multiplier. That's why we do so much with it. But with Plasma Orb, we currently only have 22 dex. So this is 66% more damage. It's actually not bad, but if you need more AoE damage, if you want, you can get more dex on your gear, and it will massively increase your AoE clear. So like a huge increase to the Plasma Orb Brand of Deception ticks. And it's not hard to do. You just get some dex on your gear instead of strength, or in addition to strength. You can even run like Weaver Gloves. You can run Jungle Queen for 10 more dex on your belt. You can have dex on your helm. You can even have dex swaps. Like if you want, you could have a dex red ring instead of strength. And all of these will increase your AoE damage a lot. So if your goal is speed clear, you just stack that dex, and then you have huge plasma orbs doing giga damage. And yeah, that's basically how Branded Deception works. Moving on to the build itself. So this is a strength stacker build. The way we are doing our stack here, we're actually multi-stacking. We have strength and int. We're doing this with CLEAVER solution. So your intelligence is equal to strength. The way this works, I guess might be a little bit confusing, but it just sets the int after all calculations to equal your strength. There is no reason to get int on gear passives anywhere else. It does absolutely nothing. What that means is that CLEAVER is giving us 155 int for free, just based off of our strength. It's extremely strong because int gives us ward retention. It gives us increased damage, so it's 4% per point. This is over 600% increased damage just off of our int. And there's also a bunch of other stuff in our skill trees and passives that scale with int. So there's a huge amount of value from this being applied. We also have the Velatria's set in use here. We have one of the affixes from the Velatria set, so we get shock per int. And as I mentioned earlier, shock is giving us a more multi, so 6% more damage per point of shock. So this 155 int is also times 6 for damage. So this is over 900% more damage just from the int. So the int itself is extremely valuable, but then the strength is also crazy valuable. So because of the strength we have, we are block capped. I haven't even slammed block effectiveness yet. I only have the base block effectiveness on the shield. When I slam, I'm basically going to be immune to damage from hits. It also gives us 4% increased armor per point, and we have quite a lot of flat armor on this build. We're already at 12.3k. We can quite easily get to 15,000+ armor with the setup, and if you have any armor applying to DOTs, that also goes a long way for mitigating those. But yeah, we're extremely tanky with all this armor, with all this block, ward generation, etc. So the strength is giving us that. The only reason this works is because ailments don't care about the flat spell damage. So not having spell damage doesn't really matter. And one-handed axes can still roll shock chance, which is our priority stat. It can roll lightning damage, it can roll lightning pen, it can roll damage over time. There's some pretty good affixes that you can already get for this build on the axe that do apply global buffs, which end up being transferred to the brand. So we're not really missing any of the spell damage on this, and it gives us strength already on the item itself, plus all skills. This ends up being a really, really strong weapon for this mage build. Another thing that the int is giving us, which is how we end up getting so ridiculously tanky, is while we slide around with Mana Guide, we have 8 armor, flat armor, per point of int. So with 150, you can already see this is crazy. This is over 1,000 flat armor just from our int, which is getting multiplied by all our increases, and then again multiplied by the more armor here. So even though we have 50% less armor while channeling focus, we still end up with way more armor, just because of all the multipliers, all the flat int. Anyway, let's continue on explaining the gear. So the helmet, as I mentioned, this gives us shock chance per int. This is all part of the stack. To get a reforged set, you have to shatter a set item in the new woven crafting. One of the new woven echoes gives you set shattering. You put the affix onto a helm with a T7. Then you use a Rune of Havoc to try and shuffle the tiers around until you get a tier 7 on the Velatria affix. So that's how I crafted this. It's pretty hard to craft these, so this is still the best that I've gotten. I haven't dropped anything great. You can do a little bit of manipulation here with imprinting, using the woven tree to make this a bit easier, but this is where I'm at for now. If you don't have a T7 affix on a reforged, just use the set. It's always 1% shock per int with the set. You don't need tiers or anything. This is going to be the highest value you could get until you have a really good helm. For the neck, Mana Guide is the only thing that really works for this build. Without this, you don't move while channeling. For my slams, I have elemental damage over time. Because this rolls so high, it's actually higher value than T7 shock. So the multiplier on shock, I think it goes up to like 80 or something like that, whereas LE dot goes up to 250. Due to diminishing returns, the LE dot does end up being better on this spot. That's mainly just because we get so much shock already from our idols. But yeah, so for Mana Guide, LE dot gives you a huge amount of damage. For our chest piece, you want strength. So Getting strength on mage gear used to be impossible. This was enabled with 1.2. The way you do this is there is a new woven echo, which offers a attribute swap. This one. So you can swap int or dex or whatever that drops on the mage, and you swap it with strength. You can do the same with the helmet. Anything that's mage specific, you can now get strength on. Next we have the rings. So the rings here, I do have red ring. I just recently acquired these. They're not necessary at all. One thing that you could have instead is the crab ring. Crab ring gives swiftness, which is move speed. It's very good for this build. It also gives all attributes, gives % armor. So if you don't have red ring, get the crab ring. Another good option is Osirion. If you don't have either of those, you can just run an exalted ring with strength. That's completely fine. For the belt, you have a few options. Jungle Queen with Dex is going to give you a lot more damage on your Plasma Orb because of the fundamental criterion scaling, so the 3% more damage per Dex. For the Plasma Orb, it boosts the damage a lot. Otherwise, Ellie Dot is pretty high damage here. I have Crit Avoid. Just because I have Red Ring, I was able to cap my res with just Idols and Red Ring, so I took the Crit Avoid instead of All Res Blessing. See 67 plus 1 T5 Crit Avoid affix here, and I am Crit Avoid capped just with this one item. Normally you need multiple items to get crit mitigated, but here we just have the one. This is pretty good. For the gloves, you have some options here. You can use the Weaver Will gloves. It gives you all attribute, but I think the best in slot here is probably still Eternal Gauntlets or the new Uber Aberoth gloves, which have strength on them, and then you can slam even more strength. So those would probably be best in slot. They also have DR built into them. I think if you can get them, they're best. There's also another alternative. That would be these, Grasp of the Blood Mage. These are kind of like a mini Aberoth glove. I don't really know if it's worth it. It does kind of have that mitigation, but I don't think we really need it. It also has CDR, so it's not terrible, but in general, I think Eternal Gauntlets is the best because it has built-in armor mitigation applying to DOT, which we definitely do want. For boots, I think Blood of the Exile just wins here. Like, I don't know if there's anything that really competes. It gives us strength and dex on the item, plus up to 40% move speed. It's very, very difficult to compete with that. A 2LP, you'll probably want to slam either dexterity or more move speed onto this. For the relics, you have a few options. The best in slot might actually be the Uber Aberoth one because it gives all attribute, it gives perma haste. Twisted Heart is pretty good though, just because it's giving us here with the slam 32 strength. 2 LP is possible on Twisted Heart, but yeah, for 1 LP, 32 strength is quite strong overall. A very good alternative is the Storm Carved. This gives us a crazy amount of shock chance early on in this build. If you can get a Storm Carved, you definitely want to use it. Until you have a lot of shock chance and there's diminishing returns, Storm Carved will probably be your best in slot. Then finally for the idols, these are pretty much mandatory. As soon as you have the opportunity, you need to get these weaving idols. These shock affixes are crazy. You can get up to 30% shock on hit per 2x1 idol. It's almost impossible to compete with the value of this idols. This is your #1 priority for gearing. You can get 8 idols times 30. So you're getting 240% shock just for idols alone. And then also you can use them to fill out your resist. Then moving over to blessings, I'm COF, so I always take XP. Here we have Void Res. Check the planner that I'll put in the description, but Void Res is not what you want. I just haven't had time to get a better one. We also have Crit Avoid, so as I mentioned, you can take All Res. This is a totally valid option, especially before you have Red Ring. This is what you'll want. Here I have Flat Armor. We're basically already immortal while channeling, so instead of taking armor while channeling, I'm still using flat armor. If you just want to be even tankier and you trust your gameplay that you're always going to be channeling when you should be, then taking the armor while channeling will make you even tankier. Age of Winter, you probably want % armor. We're stacking a crazy amount. For Lagon, the only option is Shock. So Shock, you can get up to 100% from the Blessing, 600% more damage. Moving over to passive, so we'll start with the Mage tree. Because we don't care about int with Cleaver Solution, I don't take the int points, which is what mages normally take here. Instead, I just take percent damage, and then I just skip forward with extra health points here because we are taking reactive ward. You don't actually need this many points in the tree, so if you don't like reactive ward and you want to put the points someplace else, you would just not take this. But to explain the reactive ward tech, when you drop below 70% health, you gain a burst of ward based on your maximum health. This sounds like an emergency button, but it's actually not. It's just pure sustain when you're using Twisted Heart. You can see whenever you cast with Twisted Heart, you lose health. And as soon as I go below 20%, there you can see the big burst of ward. And here we'll get another one. So it's giving us like 1500 ward every 6 seconds, which works out to over 200 ward per second. But yeah, we're basically spending 8 points to get another 200 and something ward per second. So I do think that this is actually fairly high value. Moving over to the Sorcerer, this is pretty much just for move speed. While we're moving around, it's going to be up most of the time, so it's completely fine to take. Then for here, we just get a little bit more ward per second, just to give us some baseline ward so we don't run into echoes with nothing. Then in the Spellblade tree, we just have some filler points so that we can take the Fire Shred. Our Fire Auras are being converted into Lightning, so we're getting the Lightning Shred because of FLAMEWARD with Global Conversion. If you aren't converting with FLAMEWARD, if you're not running FLAMEWARD for whatever reason, you'll probably want the Fire Aura to Lightning here. So that is one option. Otherwise, we just path here. We get a more multiplier against chilled enemies. Enemies are always chilled because of our focus. It is applying chill. Then onto the Runemaster tree. So we don't benefit from int, so we don't care about this. We don't use the catalyst or benefit from int, so we don't take this. The DR you definitely do want on a tank build. Here we path through. Then we take extra ward per second, just taking the 6 points because it's fairly efficient. Also gives us more health for our reactive ward. Then we take Cataclysm. We just need to get the points so that we can get the end nodes in the tree here. So I take it because there isn't much else. Then I take 1 point here, 3 points here. This gives us move speed and a bit of cast speed after we use Flame Rush, so that's pretty much permanently up. You can see here move speed buff. Then we take Decree of the Burning Wind. This is more damage against bosses and rares. That's the only place we really need more damage, so this is good. Double effect when you have a Raw Rune or Frostwall. This bonus is pretty much always 16% more damage. It's not bad. Then we have the Brand of Deception nodes. So this we've already touched on, but basically we're just applying Brand of Deception with this node here. You can't really start playing this build till you have these points. They're pretty much mandatory. This is where our more multiplier comes from. This is actually 2 multipliers. You have the 12% to Branded, and then you also have the 6% more damage per 1% shock chance. So just some clarity on this note, Order's Imposition. The shock chance this is talking about is the character sheet shock chance. If you have shock chance anywhere else, like shock chance with lightning skills or something like that, it doesn't do anything for this build. The only shock chance that matters is this number right here. If the skill tree has like Lightning Blast has increased shock chance or something like that, it will not transfer to the ailment. The only thing that matters is this. Then we also have Runic Fortress. So this is how we get almost all of our ward. 1/5 of our 13-ish thousand every 2 seconds is getting converted into ward. It's actually quite a lot. So you see here we're casting focus, and then boom, we're getting like 3,000 ward, which we're always doing anyway because we have to rechannel. Then we take Ancient Inscriptions. This is just giving us CDR. That just lets us cast our Invocation more often because it's triggered through Flame Rush. So without this, our cooldown goes up quite a bit. We're stacking int because of Cleaver, so this does have a lot of value. Moving over to skills, so focus, this is pretty much just a utility. I'm going over here for no cooldown because otherwise sometimes you'll get stuck without focus on cooldown when you're like fighting a boss or something like that, and then you're just kind of walking around without focus. You don't want that. So the no cooldown helps to make sure you're always able to cast focus whenever you need it. So you're pretty much permacasting. These nodes are just pathing. This one we already touched on, but it's armor per int and more armor. This is extremely powerful. Then down here we have DR, damage taken from chilled plus chill chance. This is just generally really strong. All the DR nodes and focus are very strong. Then up here I take haste, so haste after channeling. This is pretty much permanently giving us haste. So you can see here we're channeling the focus. Now we have haste. We want another plasma orb. We refresh our haste. So this is pretty much giving us perma-haste with this build. this one node here. Once you have the Uber relic or something else that's giving you haste, you can drop these nodes. You won't need them anymore and just take more DR. There's even more DR here with the ignited enemies, plus it gives you ignite chance. So if you have extra points, just take the ignite DR. Then for FLAMEWARD, so FLAMEWARD we have, first we are converting it into lightning. So this is globally converting our fire auras as well into lightning, and that's how we're getting our lightning shred, because we have the shock from Lagon, so we don't take lightning shred there. We have fire damage. This is being converted into lightning as well. So if you cast your lightning ward before using your brand, you do end up doing quite a bit more damage. So if I'm fighting a boss or something like that, before I drop my Runic, I'll just hit my fire aura first and then drop it, and then I do a much larger tick because of that. Then we take duration, we have some ward stuff, we take even more DR, this is great for defense, and we get more fire auras from our Flame Ward. Next we have Flame Rush. So Flame Rush normally will be fire type because we need Runic Invocation, fire, lightning, fire. So right now it is fire. For your single target, you will convert it into cold. So we'll talk about that in a second, but for now, this is what our tree looks like in the echo clearing variation. So right now we have cooldown, mana efficiency, we have a bunch of DR. This is very nice because Flame Rush is channeling. So with Flame Rush and Focus, we're pretty much permanently channeling. You can see the DR here. This is really good. We have a pretty sizable ward burst after Flame Rush. This is nice. It works out to probably around 100 wardish per second because we cast it very often. The main thing here though is we have Runic Invocation on exit, and this does bypass the cooldown that Runic Invocation normally has. So because of this, we are able to spam Runic Invocation when we normally can't. So you can see here, cooldown, it's quite long because of Immutable Order, but Flame Rush doesn't care, it just bypasses it. That's how that works. Moving on to the Runic Invocation. How Runic Invocation works is you have your runes here. You can see we have Fire, Lightning, Fire that determines the spell that Runic Invocation will cast. Because of Immutable Order in the tree, you can determine the order of the runes using the elements on your skill bar. So in this case, Fire, Lightning, Fire. This is the order of our skills from left to right. So we always get Plasma Orb. And then for our single target, we just do a bit of swapping, which I'll show in a second. And then we get Covenant Arc, which is a different spell. But for now, yeah, let's explain the tree. So these are pretty high value. This gives you more damage for direct casting. So when you're fighting bosses, whenever this is off cooldown, it's good to direct cast Runic Invocation just because you get a damage boost. You'll do much more single target. Then over here we have Runic Energy. So that's just something that builds up over time, and then it makes your next invocation do significantly more damage. This is how you can potentially one-shot bosses, build this up before the fight, and then you just drop your invocation. You do a huge burst of damage because of that, boosting it. Then these nodes over here just give you more Runic Energy and you can build it up quicker. Up here we have Ellie Pen per int. This also transfers onto the Brand of Deception, so this gives us a bunch more damage. We have faster rune gain while channeling. This is how we're building up our runes while casting Focus. You can see how quickly it builds up. Then over here we have damage per rune consumed, so this is being transferred, and then we have even more damage here. Then we have our Frostwall. So Frostwall is basically just a damage multiplier for this build. That's all we're really using for. Right now it's being converted into Fire for our Fire, Lightning, Fire for Plasma Orb. But the main thing we're using this for is we have Cleanse here. The first time you pass through a wall, you get a cleanse. So if you're ever with a scary ailment on you, you just walk through your frost wall and you are cleansed. But the big thing we're using this for is a huge damage boost on bosses. So you drop this down, you walk through it, and then your next Runic Invocation does a huge burst of damage, which is being transferred onto the Brand of Deception. So this is how you end up with your multi-million ticks, potentially, with a min-max build. This gives us a huge boost of damage. Then you also have damage buff to Chilled. These nodes up here are just flex picks. That is the AoE setup. Once you go to do a boss, all you need to do is you just put 2 points in here for Flame Rush. It's now cold. You take 1 point out here from Frostwall. It's now cold. And then all you have to do is swap the order, and you have Covenant Arc. That's your single target. And the way this one works is it casts a little beam centered on you. So you would walk up to the boss, you can direct cast it, so Runic Invocation on the boss, or you just Flame Rush onto the boss and it will apply the brand through the Runic Invocation autocast. And then you would just tap Q, just stand on the boss, tap Q over and over, and you'll kill the boss. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for today. As always, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.